Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. Scott Linden here, your guide to the outdoors, adventure, great dogs, beautiful places, and good friends. It's all about bird hunting, bird dogs, and the stuff that goes along with it. This week, we're going back to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and Pheasant Fest for a fascinating conversation with somebody who's been there, done that, been through the wringer, and basically attributes hunting with his survival, if you will. Author Tony Jones has been ground up and spit out, and some of the things that he learned in that process he will reflect on with us. They're also in his new book, so we'll talk about that. And then also, on a more practical basis, Tony will tell us a little bit how he succeeds at getting hunting access to private land. All coming up right here on the Upland Nation podcast. You will tell me and the rest of us what you think is the best clay target game for bird hunters and why. And then I will get back into the act and show you, help you, demonstrate, advocate for a little trick or two that might help you in teaching your dog to retrieve just a little better. Might come in handy at one point or another in his retrieving training career. As usual, we're made possible by High-Vis Shooting Systems, LandTrust.com, ESPAmerica.com, Purina Pro Plan Sport Dog Food, MidwayUSA.com, Trulock Choke Tubes, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, Pointer Shotguns, and Sage and Breaker Gun Care products. We're getting some great feedback on the TV show. If you haven't figured it out yet, it's on all over the place, all the time this time of year. I think I counted 7 different outlets you can get it on, from local TV stations to national networks and everything in between. This coming week, upstate New York, a fascinating trip we did a while back to a place that isn't as old as it looks, but could have been the subject matter for one of those old, great Field and Stream cover stories on hunting back in the day. We had a lot of fun with some Cocker Spaniels, and you will enjoy watching the adventures that we had in upstate New York. Other than that, working on the usual stuff here, mainly steadiness, kicking around, running up to pretend birds and real birds so that Flick remains steady the whole time, and I'm knocking on wood. So far, so good. Yourself? Well, I'm doing a lot of shooting these days too, and I thought it would be interesting to ask you, which of the clay target games do you think is probably the most, the best? I asked for the best clay target game for bird hunters. Lots of the usual, among others. George Gomez says Sporting Clay's walking course, most realistic. George, I agree, and we've probably walked the same one. I think you live down the road somewhere. Probably the same course once or twice. My biggest gripe, and I love it. Hey, I used to make a TV show about Sporting Clays. I love the game, but there are a lot of unrealistic targets. Dropping targets, springing teal, so they say, things like that. My solution to that is I just ignore those targets. I don't pull the trap on those. I don't waste a round of ammo on those. Works out pretty well for me. Many folks advocated for a walking Sporting Clays course. I agree. Eric Kopang, you and I are simpatico on this one. Probably skeet, he says. Yeah, let's remember, skeet was invented by rough grouse hunters. There's a reason they came up with the target presentations they did. Absolutely. Especially, again, we're talking about going to the station, standing in the box, if you will, and starting from a low gun position. So those are the things that matter most, probably, no matter what game you're playing. If you haven't played Helis yet, it's a very expensive game, and it's not even really technically a clay target game because the targets aren't clay. They're little plastic propellers with a little white plastic target, so to speak, on the bottom, but those targets fly like birds. Oh man, here, there, everywhere. You never know what's going to come out of the throwers, such as the launchers, and you're on your toes. Along those lines, let's see, I saw one earlier in my listing. Wobble trap. Kurt Deary, thank you for that suggestion. If you can ever get a chance to shoot at a wobble trap, oh man, that's probably the most realistic clay target game, because you never know where the bird is going to fly. Could be up, could be down, could be across, a little bit of everything. Start that with a low gun, and man, oh man, it's just like standing over a pointing dog, Kurt says, and I can't agree more. John Anderson makes an interesting point. I like trap, he says, to simulate hunting over pointers. And that's true. You know, you think about it, and I've advocated this in a few videos as well. You know, most of the time, most of the birds are going to pretty much go away from you. Not straight away, but almost straight away. Especially if you're working a pointing dog and you can get up close to push that bird out yourself. John Beatty says, skeet to learn, sporting clays for more realistic hunting practice. And Mike Siebert basically says what we all should agree to, and that is all the games will help you develop an eye for shooting ahead of a moving target. Yeah, shoot from the low ready position, and take advantage of any chance you have to shoot at clay targets. Well, I can't agree more, Mike. Thank you, and thank everybody else who participated in the discussion. There's always something to talk about at our social media pages. So if you are looking to learn or looking to teach, take a look at Instagram, X, still want to say Twitter, and also, of course, all the Facebook pages, from Upland Nation to Wing Shooting USA. That portion of the show is brought to you by landtrust.com. Laying plans right now. I'm going to make a good long sharp-tail trip to Montana, and using landtrust.com for one good reason. If I'm going to drive that far, I want to know I'm going to have access to a place that is relatively well managed and exclusive. Kind of like a VRBO, but for us, you can rent a day, 2 days, a week, however long you want, and know that you have exclusive access to private land that is managed well. Hey, sign up for the free account and then just browse around. Shop for the places you want to go. And believe me, this time of year, fishing is also on the agenda, and a lot of fishing properties are there as well. Learn more at landtrust.com. TrueLockChokes.com is where you pick up the easiest way to become a better shooter. Pattern density and the evenness of your pattern, your shot pellet distribution, is in large part dependent on the quality of your choke tubes. Nothing matters until the last few inches of your gun barrel, and that's where high quality materials, engineering, and equipment come in. All TrueLock chokes are produced in the United States from United States steel. Learn more about what they can do for your shooting at TrueLockChokes.com. And for every other aspect of shooting, hunting, in the outdoors, head for MidwayUSA.com. Sign up for the emails or text notifications. You'll get 10% off your next order. Yeah, you'll save a few bucks. Maybe you can buy a little more ammo. That's what I'm doing a lot over there, shooting all those targets. I need a lot of ammo to go there, too. Remember, they're fully stocked with ammo, but they're also full of all sorts of other things. Dog training equipment, bird hunting gear of all sorts. And then, like I said, camping and fishing as well. Just ordered a bunch more flies from MidwayUSA.com. That's where customer satisfaction and engagement is their number one goal. One of the joys of being at the Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic, well, besides being in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is great, having a good time, is some of the speakers and some of their topics, which are thought-provoking and also fascinating. Oh, did I also mention educational? And one of the speakers also has a lot more to say than he could ever cram into one presentation on one stage. Tony Jones joins me right here in the booth at Legacy Sports. Tony, welcome to the Upland Nation podcast.
It's great to be here. It's a great honor. And, man, this Pheasant Fest, so fun.
Yeah, isn't it, though?
It's just, you're just like, are they going to have, how can they have more people today than yesterday? And then it happens. How can they have more people in Sioux Falls than they had in Minneapolis? And it's like, it just grows and grows.
And every one of them is your close personal friend.
Right.
We've all got something in common, and that's the fun part. And I can't say enough good about Pheasant Fest and the Quail Classic. If it's ever near you, dear listener, go out of your way. And we've had, I think the record so far, talking to me, is somebody who drove 11 hours to get here.
Incredible.
Yeah, specifically to see you in your talk.
Oh, right. I wish. Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about your new book. We're going to talk about your presentation, which is of real interest to all of us. But first of all, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks again for having me. It's great to be on, and I'm a passionate upland. I'm a hunting generalist. I hunt a lot of different things, but upland hunting and specifically pheasant hunting is like, I'm crazy about it.
Yeah.
It's the thing I dream about, like literally have dreams about. So I do love it, and I hope we can talk about that. I'm a 55-year-old guy. I live in the Twin Cities. I have spent most of my life there. I was on a track for being a pastor from a very early age. In 7th grade, I said to my youth pastor, I want to be a minister. Wow. And I was on that path, and I followed that. I pursued that path. After college, I went to seminary, and then I got into ministry, and I got ordained, and then ultimately even got a PhD in theology.
Wow.
So that I could teach at seminaries and stuff like that. But life doesn't always go as planned. And
so I've been told, by the way.
Yeah. I'm sure your life has been a straight shot, but mine's been a little crooked.
I'm the poster boy of crooked.
Okay. And, I, at about the age of 40, my life I don't know what metaphor you want to use, ran into a brick wall. I went through a really brutal divorce. 5 years later, a really nasty custody fight. I ended up getting custody of my kids, but lost everything else.
Wow.
I mean, foreclosed on, lost my job, my ministry, lost my book deals, lost everything. And I had been really at the top of the game. I mean, I was kind of like a celebrity pastor. Your listeners can't hear, but I'm using scare quotes. I was like a B-list or C-list, celebrity pastor. But I lost it. And, a lot of people, sometimes you're asked, if you had to choose your job, your career, or your family, I'd choose my family, of course. Well, it's a hypothetical question for most people. For me, it became a real deal. But again, I didn't even really have a choice, frankly. I fought for my kids, and I'm glad I did. But I found comfort and solace in the outdoors. Uh-huh. That's what happened. I did not grow up in a hunting family. We had a lake place. We did some, pan fishing. But I wasn't like an outdoorsman. Went to the Boundary Waters with my church youth group when I was a kid, but hadn't been back, you know? And I just felt this pull to the outdoors. So I spent more and more time doing that. It's really what healed me. And then, over the course of time, kind of rebuilt my life, got remarried, incredible marriage, thank God. And so I wrote the book. We can talk about the book later, but I mean, the book's kind of that journey. All my other books have been about, how to be a better Christian, how to pray, and theological texts because I was a seminary professor. But this one's, from the heart. So it's funny because I've been to a lot of pastors' conventions.
There are such things?
Oh my gosh, man. Yeah, and there are booths. They don't have firearms in them, but they have, they have
Bible with a red cover instead of a black cover.
Yeah, and communion chalices and things like that, So this is I've switched industries, and I'm building out my life in this world and couldn't be happier about it. So yeah, I still live in the Twin Cities, but I spend a lot of time out in the field. I lead guide canoe trips in the Boundary Waters. I hunt. I mentor young guys in hunting all the time. So yeah, that's kind of what landed me here.
Well, we could talk all through the rest of the Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic. We got so much to cover, but I'm intrigued by one thing that you said that triggered something else. Everybody in here, if you said, well, I don't go to church.
Yeah.
The outdoors is my church, and or variations on that, and you said something that was almost a little like that, but I understand you're deeper than that. But what is it about the outdoors that makes us all kind of think a little bit more about spiritual matters?
Yeah. Well, first of all, on your lead up to that question. Probably most people, I know it's not a religion podcast, but I'll do a little inside baseball right now to tell you that the fastest growing segment on the American religious landscape is non-affiliated.
Yeah,
people who are not.
Yeah.
And I mean, among millennials, younger folks than you and me, it's 43%, and probably among Gen Z, it's going to top 50 for the first time, not just in American history, but in the history of the West, in the history of Western civilization.
Spiritual, but not religious.
That's a big term.
Yeah.
That's a big term. SBNR, we call them in the business. I'm not kidding.
At the conventions. There's a seminar on that.
Guaranteed. There's a seminar on that, and we also call them the nuns, N-O-N-E-S.
Yeah.
The nun, because on surveys, what religion are you? None.
Yeah.
Okay? But to your point, human beings, I believe, still have a spiritual need.
Yeah.
I mean, people want to find meaning and transcendence in their life.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are finding that in the outdoors.
Yeah.
And that's what my book's about. But, there are other people, I mean, it's from everything as mundane as saying, I see God in the sunset.
Yeah.
But as you and I know, it's something else to, be kneeling over a large game animal that you've killed. To me, that's a very emotional and very spiritual experience. And so I hope that in this industry, that people will learn a little from the pastors' conventions, and maybe we can be a little more, conscious about about us being part of that predator-prey relationship.
Yeah.
And being aware of the meat that we're bringing to our table and how we acquire it.
Yeah.
And we're not outsourcing that to somebody in a factory we've never met, right?
Yeah.
But it's part of our lives and our livelihoods. And I could go on and on. I think the outdoors encounter is a very spiritual experience. But like anything in life, if you're not deliberate about it, it just pass you by.
Yeah.
It's just I just shot another pheasant. Whatever.
Do we evolve to that? And pheasant is a perfect analogy because everybody knows they're beautiful and they admire the beauty and the complexity and all of that. But do we need to evolve to that, to where when we hold that pheasant in our hand after we shoot it, we're thinking as you've described? Because there are young people in here who have never shot one or have shot one or two or are not quite as experienced as us. Are they there already, or do they need training in that?
The latter.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Just like we have to train them to be safe hunters, you know?
Yeah.
I think, it's just core of any spiritual practice in any religion or any kind of non-religious setting. It takes practice. There's a reason they're called spiritual practices. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not unlike the more you shoot, the better you get at shooting, right?
Yeah.
And the more you work with your dog and train your dog, the better that you and your dog hunt together. It's a similar deal of, and it is, look, frankly, when you shoot 1 deer or 2 deer a year, and it's a very intense experience to kill a mammal, right?
Yep.
It's a different deal when you kill 12 birds in a weekend, to be cognizant of every one. But maybe at the end of the hunt, instead of what one of my friends called the tailgate of death, where you just lay them out.
I'm going to steal that too,
where you just lay them all out, you put the dog, you take the picture. Instead, you could be like, wow, look at this bounty, and let's take a moment and like thank the pheasants for what a weekend. Not only did we have a great time, we got to work our dogs, we got to hang out with our buddies, but now we go home with this food that we're going to have for our family. This is incredible.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
I'm Scott Linden. That's Tony Jones. We are at the Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. This is the Upland Nation podcast. Just getting warmed up here with some great talk that maybe a little deeper than most of the things I do, but that's okay too. Tony, you've got your dog with you. Tell us about your dog, and then tell us about your favorite kind of bird hunting.
Okay, well, my dog is Crosby. He's my 3rd yellow lab of my adult life. So far, the people who've read early versions of the book, what I keep hearing back from is, that chapter on the dogs.
Yeah.
Because I've had these 3 dogs, and I think any of us who have dogs, they've represented different chapters in my life. And my first dog wasn't much of a hunter, but you know what? When I walked out of a very painful, toxic marriage and situation, I didn't even have a duffel bag with clothes in it. It was the clothes on my back. But that dog followed me out of the house.
Yeah.
He was old 12. I had to lift him into the truck, and off we drove.
Wow.
That was the end of a chapter of my life. And I put him down a month later.
Wow.
And I left the vet's office, and I pulled over by the side of the road, and I called my brother. I'll never forget, I was on the speakerphone, and he was going through a divorce too.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as he answered, "Hey brother," I sobbed for 5 minutes straight into the speakerphone in my car on a rainy night, having put my dog down, because it was just the end of a lot in my life. And then I was broke. And a couple years later, I was dating the woman who would become my wife, Courtney, and I was broke. But I knew of a dog that had been turned back into a breeder, and he was going to be, I think, $425. I didn't have $425, Scott. She mailed me a check for $425, and I drove to Wisconsin and bought that dog.
Love it.
And that dog was Albert, and he was with me for the next 10 years and the chapter of my life when I was rebuilding. And now this guy with me right here is Crosby.
He's got it easy.
Yeah, I mean, life is good for Crosby. So he's doing great, and he's a great hunter. My favorite hunt is a late season South Dakota pheasant hunt. Cattail sloughs, snow and wind and cold, lab hunting.
Yeah.
That's when the Wieslas are, I hunt with some guys with Wieslas, and the Wieslas will be like hiding under the truck, shivering.
Yeah.
And the labs are like, let's go. Another cattail slough, come on.
You can have it. I'll see you in September out there for sharptails.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Give me the late season hunt.
What is it about the actual hunting part of this that that really gets you going, gets the juices flowing?
For me, if I had to strip everything away and it would be one thing, it's working with the dog.
Yeah.
It is, one thing I love about labs is this guy, we're hunting every 10 or 15 seconds. He's turning around.
Yeah.
He's making eye contact. Where's Dad? Am I going the right way? Am I doing the right thing? We're just simpatico, we're in this rhythm. And I really think that the human-canine relationship is unique in the cosmos, maybe. It's unique on this planet.
Yeah.
It's a unique interspecies relationship that no other two species share, like human beings and dogs. And I get it, people who have pets, they love their dogs, whatever, but to go with a dog and to hunt and to watch his rhythms and to be able, after having hunted with a dog a couple years, I'll be with some novice hunter and he'll say, "Oh, it looks like Crosby's birdie." And I'm like, No, there's a bunny in there, I bet. He's not like birdie.
Yeah.
He's half birdie.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's going to bump a deer, and then sure enough, he bumps a deer out or something like that. But to be that in tune with a dog that you can like even gauge how birdie they are, the spectrum of birdiness, this kind of thing is, I love it. That's the one thing.
I belabor the point once in a while, but when I wrote my last book, publisher then called and said, "You didn't give me a foreword, write the foreword."
Oh.
And I sat down and in one afternoon started with the basic idea. We've been hunting with dogs for millennia.
Yes.
Throughout that process, and the instigation for that process was there was that telepathy, and it's never changed. And you just hit on something I never thought of. I love the magic. I love watching them find a bird, point a bird, retrieve a bird, all the mechanical stuff. You just took it up a notch when you talked about the communication, the direct line between the human and the dog. And that's something I think everybody can relate to. In fact, I hope it's in the book. The fact that we have that special relationship, we don't talk about much. We talk about, we love watching the dogs. That's why we go hunting. What is it about that? And you thank you for making it so succinct. We do want to talk about your book, The God of Wild Places. I mean, it is literally brand new as we speak.
Yeah.
And isn't that a great feeling when you get the first box? And we will. But I do want to talk a little bit about your hunting season.
Yeah.
I got my priorities.
Yeah, no, I got it. We can just start with the sacred and move toward the profane marketing of a book. Yes, absolutely.
So did you get out much this year?
Got out a lot,
Oh,
Scott.
wow.
Courtney and I just became empty nesters in the fall, sent the last kid off to college.
Yeah.
So, I hunted a lot before, but now it just opened up the floodgates.
Yeah.
And I said, Courtney, I'll see it. I'll be home by Christmas Eve for sure.
Yeah.
I got out a lot. I got to South Dakota, I think 5 times. I grouse hunted in Minnesota. I pheasant hunted in Iowa. And I shot a deer in central Minnesota. Yeah, so I got out, I think, is that all of it? That's a lot. Yeah, I was gone a lot.
Yeah, well, good for you. And a lot of people are at that stage in their life where the kids are grown, the kids are gone, whatever it is, and they all of a sudden have a little bit more time to do what they threatened to do for a decade.
Right.
How do you pull it off? I mean, what kind of domestic negotiations take place?
Well,
and then beyond that, the more practical side.
I don't know your relational situation or history, but some of us make a much better choice in the second marriage than the first. Let's put it that way. Is that a genteel enough way to put it?
Yeah.
So my wife, Courtney, she has no kids herself.
Yeah.
She's a very independent person.
Yeah.
And so when we got together after my divorce and after her divorce, it was that, we still have separate checking accounts. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're independent human beings who are deeply in love. But it's funny because I do hunt with guys like, I'll have to run it I'll get clearance from the tower.
The old ball and chain.
All that. And I'm just like, it doesn't even compute because I'll just say to Courtney, like, hey, I got a last minute opportunity to go to Iowa next weekend. She's like, have a great time.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, we had dinner plans with blah, blah, blah. She's like, yeah, I'll call him up. We'll change it.
Honey, are you listening?
Yeah.
This is the good example.
And I'll tell you what else, Scott. I'm 55, and I hunt. There are a couple guys who are here with me.
Yeah.
Jorge Vicuña is one of my hunting mentors from Huron, South Dakota. He is 73 years old and a 2-time cancer survivor.
Yeah.
And then Larry Kramer, he's here. He's 79. We're going to be out there next year. He'll be 80, and I have said to him, Larry, if I have to prop you up at the edge of the side of a truck and you can block, you'll be out here as long as because he loves it. And so I look at these guys. My dad died when he was 77, morbidly obese, drank and ate himself to death. After he retired, he had and there's a chapter about his death in the book. He had no hobbies, and he had no friends.
Yep.
And I have hobbies and I have friends. So for me, I look down the road and think, I'm going to stay in shape. I'm going to stay as mentally healthy and active as I can because I want to keep doing this.
You know, it's funny. I don't want to lecture anybody because we've all been there and done that, but all those things are interrelated.
Oh, yeah.
We have a hobby. We have 25,000 close friends in this building right now.
Yeah.
We can talk to all of them. What does our hobby require? We need to be in shape.
Right.
We need to be thinking, caring about that guy and that guy in the field and at home, or that dog. And, you know, we've got a multi-dimensional homework assignment.
Yeah, so Larry will say, you know, like, hey, I know this CRP we're about to walk has a bunch of badger holes in it, so I'm going to walk the edge. Yeah, Larry, walk the edge.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't break a hip. Like, we need you, you know, and so he walks the edge or he blocks. And, you know, as we age, I think we have to be aware of our limitations and changes. But, man, I want to, as long as I'm vertical, I want to be hunting.
Love it. You're listening to the Upland Nation podcast from the floor of the Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm Scott Linden, your host. That's Tony Jones, author. I don't want to say Doctor of Divinity. Am I correct?
Well, I mean, PhD in theology. I have a master's of. I'm a reverend, doctor, blah blah blah. But you know, we try to avoid those.
And we're talking about all things somewhat practical and somewhat spiritual. We'll be back to talk about the God of Wild Places, his new book, in just a moment. In addition to more Tony, I have a trick to make your dog a better retriever. Coming up on the Upland Nation podcast, brought to you by espamerica.com. Hit the target, save your hearing with custom fit digital hearing protection. Yeah, I've belabored the point to myself, but I don't know if I've made it to you. One of the many reasons we miss is because we flinch. One of the many reasons we flinch is because our gun is really loud. The problem with hearing protection is it protects from everything. Well, not anymore. ESP has honed its technology and design to deliver you the best possible hearing protection. You can hear your dog's collar tags. You can hear your buddy making smart-ass remarks. Doesn't matter. Then, when you pull the trigger, your ears are protected from that gunshot. Learn more about how it works. Take a look at some of the technical aspects of it at espamerica.com. Did I say shooting? Well, if you're learning to shoot better, you might want to take a lesson. If you're in Western Oregon or passing through, stop at Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School in Jervis. That's just right outside of Salem. I just have to hop over the hill. But if you're passing through on I-5, you're driving right past the course. Yeah, but in addition to all of the shooting instruction from hunters who know their stuff, Dave Fiedler is the shotgun guru. If you're shopping for a new gun, start there. Call Dave. Get all the answers to all your questions. He'll have some recommendations based on his hunting and his championship shooting experience. And then when you're ready to buy, he has a line on some of those hard-to-get guns as well. He'll ship anywhere. Call Dave first at midvalleyclays.com for counsel on your needs, whether it's a new over and under, change in gauges to a sub-gauge of some sort, or a particular brand. It's all at midvalleyclays.com. And store your gun, clean your gun, take care of your gun at sageandbreaker.com. Their gear is crafted at the highest caliber, lifetime warranty. Take a look at some of the best photos on Facebook at the Sage and Breaker page. Fred really knows his stuff, not only in making gun care gear, but also in taking good photos. There's some incredibly useful videos on gun care as well at sageandbreaker.com. Sign up for the mailing list, watch the videos, and then your gun will thank you. Take a look at that.
That's cute.
Shirt.
Oh my gosh.
All right, here we go. Hey, welcome back to the Upland Nation podcast. Scott Linden here in the what do we call this thing? The Denny Sanford Center here at Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
The Premier Center.
Okay.
Come on.
I'm a sponsor behind. Anyway, that's Tony Jones. I'm Scott Linden. We're at the Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic in Sioux Falls, and we're talking about all things. Let's just say all things.
I love it. Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground, but one thing we haven't really covered is your new book. You said it, by the way, the title again, The God of Wild Places. I'm intrigued. Tell me a little bit about the impetus for the book, and then you said it was a long time coming.
It was. I started writing it too soon, frankly.
Not enough life experience?
Yeah, well, not enough time to reflect on how everything went south in my life.
Yeah.
I wrote it in the thick of that. I started it in the thick of that mess.
Yeah.
And I started writing it, and I look back because I was wondering, how long have I been working on this book? And I found the oldest email that I sent to my literary agent, like, I think I should write a memoir about the outdoors and how it saved me.
Yeah.
And since then, I've got a new literary agent, I got a new wife, and I got a new dog. And I shoot a new gun, and I got a new truck. So
let's see here. Is there a message in all of this? I'm not sure.
There's one of the great memoirists in America. Her name is Mary Karr, and she's written genius memoirs. And she says in her book about writing memoir, you should never write about anything that is less than 8 years old. So it's got to have time to simmer a little.
Yeah.
And so that's why it took so long, frankly.
Yeah.
It took a long time, but I'm happy with it.
If you were to describe an overarching message you're trying to get through to for your book, what would it be?
The tagline of it is, a pastor walks out of the church and into the woods in pursuit of the God he'd lost.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a little metaphor from the book that maybe is a little more poetic. The church I grew up in it's like from the Reformed tradition. It's kind of Calvinist, Presbyterian, Congregationalist, okay? And like a lot of churches, everything in the sanctuary is at right angles. The pews, you know what I'm saying? The rug, the pulpit, everything's right angles. And then every Sunday, it's the same thing, Scott. Every Sunday, it's basically the same liturgy.
Yeah.
I was on staff. I was a pastor at that church. And, if we went over an hour, we get angry emails like, we got to keep it to 58 minutes. Like, it's very, okay? It's
structured.
Very structured. In fact, there's a phrase in the Presbyterian Book of Order that says, worship should be done decently and in order. Okay? That goes back to John Calvin in the 16th century.
That's the Scottish way, though, isn't it?
It's the Scottish way.
Yeah.
But then I look at my life and I say, man, there's no right angles. There's a lot of twisted stuff. There's a lot of brokenness. And then I go out in the wild places. I go out in the woods or I go out in the fields, and there's no right angles.
Yeah.
It's messy. You walk in the woods to your deer stand and you see, a tree that got blown over 3 years ago that's dead, quote unquote dead. But out of that tree is growing what? Well, there's a million insects in that tree, and there's mushrooms growing on it, and maybe a couple shoots for the next tree. So to me, that cathedral of the outdoors that you already talked about, that was a much better reflection of my actual lived experience than the week in, week out liturgy of the church. And so the book tracks my journey thematically. There's a chapter on the predator-prey relationship. There's a chapter on dogs. There's a chapter on death. There's a chapter on finding peace. So that's kind of what it's about.
What would you like a reader to take away from this book?
Well, that's a great question. I would love a reader to think, I too have experiences in the outdoors that are spiritual to me, that are meaningful to me.
Yeah.
Maybe even that I should write down or tell my kids or my grandkids, or tell a story on a podcast. Like keep it alive, because I would think people would say, like, oh man, I think great memoirs draw you in as a reader, and you find yourself in that story.
It's relevant.
It's relevant to you, even if you are a totally different person. Like I would love for somebody who's never hunted to read my book and find truth, whatever that means to them, in the book. So that's what I would hope.
Truth, and you made the air quotes this time,
Yeah.
and it's true, but, pardon, it's true. Did them again. And then you mentioned what I call the body pile, the tailgate shot that everybody makes. And to some people, maybe that's a start.
Yeah.
But what are the other opportunities for us to understand, say, grace or some other type of blessing with a lowercase b that we find in the bird hunting world?
Oh, in the bird hunting world.
Give us a field guide to all the spiritual aspects we might not even think are that.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that we do, I think as we become better hunters, I didn't know anything about this when I started hunting, that I would drive by a field and I'd be like, I just drive by a field. It was nothing. And now I drive by a field and think, man, that's some great habitat. I bet there are pheasants in there. You just become attuned to the world around you, right? And I guess another thing is that I've tried to do that I think other bird hunters could do is, there's the old thing like when somebody shoots a hen by accident, and then somebody will always say, well, the coyote's got to eat too.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you're hunting a slough and a coyote comes running out, everybody's, But I'm like, I don't hate the coyote.
Yeah.
I don't hate the coyote for being a predator. I'm a predator. I'm just doing the same thing as the coyote, So
exactly.
I think there are things you can do like that. I've talked to guys before like, we shoot, if you see a raptor, you shoot at it. I'm like, no, man. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
Like we can share the bounty. In Minnesota, there's so much angst right now around wolves.
Yeah.
And deer and the deer herd,
Yeah.
And I don't hate wolves. I don't know that I have any interest in hunting wolves. I tend to trust the biologists who know a lot more than me about this stuff, and I defer to them. But regardless of what the politics of it are, I think we can be like, hey, fellow predators, man, respect.
Yeah.
I respect you for being a good predator.
Well, I love it, and it is food for thought, absolutely. Now, I originally contacted you because I was intrigued with your speaking topic while you're here at Pheasant Fest. And I really want to touch on, I don't want to touch on this, I want to smear it all over the table and roll in it. And that is finding friends to hunt with and
land to hunt. Yeah.
Boil that down to 60 seconds. No. But hit on some of the high points of finding friends. I've played with a couple editors on this topic. We all are learning more about how to find land to hunt.
Yeah.
But what if we need a new hunting buddy?
Yeah.
So give me some advice.
Well, I'll tell you my story.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Dave,
please.
Tom, Bruce. Don't worry, I'm not shopping for another one. Okay.
Well, I'll say the same thing to Jorge, Larry, Craig. You guys, we got our posse. We're good. We're good. But
if somebody hypothetically asking for a friend wants to find a new hunting buddy.
Well, here's one thing that as I said earlier in the show, life fell apart. I didn't grow up hunting. My dad didn't hunt. My grandfathers didn't hunt. I didn't know, and it's intimidating if you're a non-hunter who wants to get into it.
Oh yeah, I know.
It's a steep hill to climb.
I was there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So I'm with, an adult onset hunter, as they say, and what do I got to offer? Well, I'm age 40. I'm broke. I don't have my kids very much. What have I got to offer? Well, I'm a preacher. So I posted on my blog, I will preach anywhere for free in exchange for hunting. And I got an email within the week from the Episcopal priest of from Huron, South Dakota.
Well,
and I didn't know anything about Huron except it had the world's largest pheasant, which I figured was a good omen.
You batted 1,000.
I know. And the other thing is, this is some more inside baseball stuff on churches, but this was not like a charismatic church that has a 45-minute sermon.
Yeah.
Episcopalians have like a 12-minute homily.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that's a small amount of work for a whole lot of hunting.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm in. You tell me when, I will be there.
I'm reminded of a good friend who's also a sponsor who said, I'm not a member of an organized religion. I'm Episcopalian.
Yeah, exactly.
No wonder their sermons are short.
Yeah, no, they're short. And so I went out. She introduced me to my buddy Jorge, who's now one of my dearest friends, and he's walking the show floor somewhere. And then some other guys joined the group, and then there were a couple landowners in the group.
Yeah.
But I became the guy who, and this is a big part of what my talk has been here at Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic is, if you don't have land, I don't have land, and I'll never be able to afford a quarter section in South Dakota, you know?
Yeah.
But these landowners, a lot of them you don't need to pay $250 per gun per day to hunt. You need to be a nice human being.
Yeah.
You need to say, like today, I saw a guy whose land I hunt, and he said, would you come out, let's go through those tree belts with chainsaws, because those Russian olive trees, walking through those tree belts.
Yeah.
I mean, don't wear your fancy shirt because, there's
I got
blood.
the scars to show.
Yes, exactly. So let's make a weekend. I've got chainsaws. I'll come out and we'll make some paths so we can walk next fall through the Russian olive trees. Like, I've been out here to help plant trees.
Yeah.
I've sent flowers. I've sent Christmas centerpieces.
Sure.
So that kind of thing. That's how I've found land to hunt. And I guess to your actual question about finding buddies to hunt with, when you have access to good private land to hunt, the guys tend to, you tend to make friends.
Well,
because people hear about it,
Yeah.
they hear about it and they're like, or they see your pictures on Instagram and how can I get in on that? I'm
Yeah.
like, well, here's how. Don't be I don't know if you allow swearing on your podcast, so I won't swear. Don't be a bleep, be a nice dude.
Yeah.
Like, be friendly.
Yeah.
Keep your dog under control.
Yeah.
Be a safe hunter.
Yeah.
Unload your gun when you get back to the truck. Don't be an idiot.
Yep.
And then when it comes time when one of them says, hey, I want to buy some seed from PF to plant. I'm going to pull a couple acres out of cropland and put in a food plot, which, I mean, come on. A food plot next to a CRP when you're hunting pheasants? Anybody who wants can pitch me in $100 to pay the seed.
Sure.
Oh my gosh, I'm on Venmo as fast as my thumbs will fly to be like, yes. And then I'll say to all the other guys, like, by end of day, you send $100 because that is a small price to pay for a food plot next fall.
You're hitting on a whole bunch of things there, and they're all great, and they all boil down to one thing, and that is be a good person to be with.
Be a good person.
I joke about it, but I actually wrote an article about that kind of thing and how to be a good guest when you're invited on a hunt.
Yes, exactly.
And, on top of all those things, it's, hey, bring more lunch than you need.
Yes.
Always have a thermos full of coffee and 2 cups.
Yeah.
Simple stuff.
Yeah, and this farmer, his wife really likes white wine. Bring a bottle of white wine.
Yeah.
It's little things. They're not, a lot of these farmers out here in the stuff I hunt, in pheasant hunting territory, these guys have tens of millions of dollars of property. What's $100 for some seed? Nothing. For them, it's spitting in the ocean. But for me, it's a gesture of saying, I really value the graciousness you show me by letting me hunt your land, and I don't want to be a jerk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to take it for granted.
Yeah. The other half of that presentation was, and probably will be again tomorrow, finding land to hunt on. That's our number one priority.
Yeah.
Everybody I talk to, those 4 guys right there are wondering where they're going to hunt on opening weekend.
Yeah.
How do we do that in ways that we haven't thought of?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Don't do it on opening weekend.
Yes. Yeah.
Suck it up.
It's too late.
Suck it up and go out in December.
Yeah.
And you know what? When you're out there in December and the Orange Army has all gone home,
yeah,
I almost never get a no from a farmer when I knock on a door or phone call or whatever. Because in December, they're not, some guys maybe are making money in October from hunters on their
Sure.
in their sloughs or whatever. But by December, they're like, no, yeah, go for it. That's great. So, I mean, old school, I knock on doors. I mean, this is going to be a real challenge for the millennials.
Yes.
You know,
Help us through that.
I mean, one of the farmers that I've recently come to know and hunt on his land, Scott, he has a flip phone, okay? He's younger than me. He's like 50. He's got a flip phone. You can't text this guy. He doesn't have his voicemail set up, so you can't leave him a voicemail. So you call, or if you see him out on a gravel road in his tractor, you flag him down. Hey, Scott, his name is Scott, hey, could we, do you think we could go hunt that slough? I just saw a bunch of roosters jumping up and down in there. Oh, yeah, go for it. Here, you guys should go in this way. Here, or he'll say, tomorrow I'm going to combine this field.
Yeah.
You should definitely hunt that draw, because they're all going to run down into the creek. And you're just like, oh, yeah. And then what do? You send him a Christmas card.
Yeah.
You drop him a note in the middle of the spring. You say, what can I just bought, frankly, over in my hotel at the Ramkota, in the freezer, there's a quarter of beef that I just bought. I bought a quarter of beef from him, because I want to support him too, and he raises great beef cattle.
You're as a more spiritual person than many of us, there may be a better term for the one I'm going to use, and I want you to help me with it.
Okay.
Because I don't mean tit for tat or quid pro quo, but to a great degree, it is that, and I want to qualify it. I've read recently, and you probably have read it many times, doing nice things for people is good for yourself as well.
Yeah.
And then look, maybe that'll happen, whether it costs you a side of beef or a bag of seed. But is there some spiritual equivalent to the quid pro quo?
I mean, let's just call that being in relationship. Right? Let's call that having grace.
Yeah.
Like you've been in hunting crews where things go sideways one day.
That's most of my hunts.
They go sideways. Yeah. Guys get mad at each other. Somebody didn't follow the this or that. Or, frankly, you get done with a hunt, somebody has a couple too many beers, they maybe say something that in the morning they wake up and think, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Some guy yells at another guy's dog, that gets everyone's dander up. Stuff goes sideways all the time. It's just when you're in that intense of a thing and you're hunting together and everybody loves it and they've only got so many days a year to hunt, and then you got dogs and firearms and there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
It's more intense than most of the things we do on a daily basis. So then if you're in a relationship with those guys you're hunting with, then you're like, hey, you guys, yesterday went a little sideways, but we're good, right? Like we love each other. We're going to be okay. And then, you see the temperature go down a little bit and that kind of thing. Or, sometimes it's happened to all of us. It's happened to me. You're hunting somewhere, and then you see this has happened. You see a pickup come flying over and it's the farmer, and he comes. You weren't supposed to hunt there. You're on the wrong. I'm sorry. I mean, Onyx helps with that. Now we're a little less shooting in the dark, but then you just are like, I'm really sorry. And you know what? If you have a relationship with that landowner, they're probably going to be like, honest mistake. I get it. Just next time, make sure you check with me first or whatever. So that's all about, I think the word for it for me is relationship. And relationships take work. It's like marriage.
Yeah.
I'm a way better husband in the second marriage than I was in the first.
Well, I think that what I'm hearing is it should start like you said, well before opening day.
Yeah.
Or well after opening day. And it doesn't start with the ask. Yeah, a lot of times it could be something very simple. If I'm going up a long driveway, I pick up the mail at the end of the driveway.
There you go. Little stuff.
And why not?
Why not?
Oh, we could go on all day. Tony Jones is the author of The God of Wild Places, rediscovering the divine in the untamed outdoors. Just from talking to him, you can imagine you're going to find something in there of value to you. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast from the Sioux Falls, South Dakota Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic. Tony, we'll do it again.
Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
A better, more complete retrieve with one hand. That's coming up right here on the Upland Nation podcast in just a moment. We're brought to you in part by PointerShotguns.com. 126 days to the Kansas Pheasant and Quail opener on November 11th. If you can't wait that long, go to Montana for Sharptails. It's only 47 days away from the opener. And if you haven't got your new shotgun yet, there's still time. Go to PointerShotguns.com, shop their entire assortment, find a local dealer, and then dial it in. You've got plenty of time to go to the range, whichever range it is, and get better with your new shotgun. Semis, over and unders, side-by-sides, all finishes, all colors, Cerakote coloring, Cerakote coatings of all sorts. It's your first stop for an upgrade. PointerShotguns.com. And fuel your hunting buddy, well, your canine hunting buddy, with Pro Plan Sport dog food from Purina, designed for active, hardworking dogs like yours and mine. High protein, the first ingredient is real meat. The reason for that is the amino acids will nourish muscles, including the crucial period after exercise. That's when muscles need all the help they can get to recover for the next day, and the next day, and the next. You know what I got on my mind, a long trip. 30% protein, 20% fat, the perfect balance for maintaining lean muscle. Learn more about all your choices at ProPlansport.com. Well, I learned this by accident a few dogs ago, and it's morphed into something that it might come in handy for you at some point in your dog's training, learning career. As I've said before, most well-bred bird dogs will go out and pick up a shot bird. I mean, that's why they're called bird dogs, right? They're, as Ronnie Smith said, little domestic predators. All right. So the key is getting him back to you. And then once he's back to you, getting him to give up the bird. Well, for a while there, I was using food treats of various sorts, and I found that you better use your highest quality, the best value food treats as defined by your dog for that. So when he's learning, and by the way, I have a great video on this at midwayusa.com, so go take a look at midwayusa.com for that. But make sure that your dog knows when he goes and picks up that bird, he is confident when he comes back, you're going to give him a treat. Okay. It may be just an interim training step. Maybe you don't need it. Your dog is that cooperative, whatever it is. But if you do need to get him back, he should know he's probably going to get he's going to make a better trade is what he's going to do. All right. That then leads you to, all right, so first off, he's got to hold that bird as long as possible. And second off, he's got to give it up at the right time. Here's what I learned. Maybe it'll help you. That treat of yours is a magic passport to a dog's holding the bird. How? Once he gets back to you, raise your hand up while you're holding the treat. He will naturally look up at it. And for some reason, hey, veterinarians, help me with this. Some reason that causes the dog to keep his mouth closed while a bird's in there. When you're ready to ask him to give you the bird, you bring your hand down, you say the magic word. In our case, it's give. You hand him the treat, you make the swap. You got the bird, he's got the treat. Woohoo! Everybody's happy. It's all about that raised hand. He's used to looking up for the treat. Even when the treat isn't there, he's still looking up and holding that bird. Yeah, in a lot of hunt tests, that dog must hold the bird until he's commanded to give it up. That's one way to help start the learning process. Handle It This Week brought to you by HighVisSights.com. See what you've been missing. All sorts of choices, colors, styles, designs of light pipe systems. These light pipe colors are, they will help you no matter what kind of light conditions you're in. Gloomy, dark, bright, doesn't matter. As I've said before, I like the really bright yellow one because then I don't have to see it, but I see it. I can focus on the target, but my subconscious is still seeing the muzzle, so I can create that relationship between the muzzle and the target. Works for me. Maybe it'll work for you. Go learn more at HighVisSights.com. HIVIZ sights.com. Well, thank you for listening to the Upland Nation podcast. Glad you could join me, and thank you all for participating. Hey, we're still growing at a massive rate, but I always love to have more listeners. So please tell one person. That's how we grow around here. And if you can, leave a rating or a review. We're made possible by Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Purina, ProPlan Sport, ESPAmerica.com, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, TrueLock Choke Tubes, MidwayUSA.com, LandTrust.com, Pointer Shotguns, and High Viz Shooting Systems. Tony Jones, thank you so much for the inspiration, the motivation, and the practical advice. And to you, dear listener, thank you for riding along with us. Again, I'm Scott Linden. Thanks for listening to the Upland Nation podcast.